mother's body. You know, it might have tried to reject you before you were even born. Not because of a disease, but because your blood contains a genetic code that, well, shouldn't exist on this planet. Think about that for a second, right? In the natural world, the womb is the ultimate sanctuary. It's the one place where biology is designed to protect life at any cost. But for 15% of the human population, that sanctuary becomes a battlefield. I mean, I'm talking about the Rh negative factor, a biological anomaly that turns a mother's immune system against her own child. In the world of medicine, we call this Rh disease. It happens when an Rh negative mother carries an Rh positive baby. Her body detects a protein in the child's blood, the rhesus factor, and it identifies that protein as a foreign invader. Not a life to be nurtured, but a virus to be eradicated. Her system begins producing antibodies to hunt down and destroy the baby's red blood cells. Now, if you ask a mainstream scientist, they'll tell you this is just a quirk of evolution. But I want you to look at the bigger picture. Evolution is built on the survival of the fittest. It's a process that refines life over millions of years to ensure the next generation thrives. Why then would nature allow a genetic trait to persist that literally causes a species to reject its own offspring? Every other mammal on Earth, from the lowliest rodent to the great apes, is Rh positive. They all share that rhesus protein. It is the universal standard of life on this planet. Except for us. Somewhere along the line, a small percentage of the human race lost that connection. Or perhaps it was never there to begin with. I've spent years looking into the shadows of our history, and this is one of the most glaring red flags I've ever found. We are told we all come from the same ancestors, the same evolutionary tree. But if that's true, why does 15% of the population carry a blood type that seems to defy the very laws of mammalian biology? It's as if two different blueprints for humanity are fighting for dominance inside the same body. It's a war within the womb, and the implications are staggering. If we didn't inherit this trait from our primate ancestors, then where did it come from? And why is it still here, lurking in our veins, thousands of years after it should have been wiped out by the natural order? We are standing at the edge of a biological mystery that goes far beyond simple genetics. I mean, this isn't just about blood types. This is about an identity crisis written into our very DNA. One that suggests that for some of us, our true origins might not be as, human as we've been led to believe.
I mean, I've looked into plenty of official explanations that felt a bit too convenient, right? But the standard scientific narrative regarding Rh-negative blood, well, it's perhaps the biggest blind spot of them all. If you pick up any modern biology textbook, you'll find the same tidy story. They'll tell you that Rh-negative blood is just a random mutation, a genetic quirk that surfaced roughly 35,000 years ago. See, they want us to believe it's just a minor variation in the human blueprint, like having blue eyes or being left-handed. But when I started digging into the actual biology, I found a contradiction that science simply cannot explain. In the natural world, there is a fundamental law. Life wants to survive. Evolution, at its core, is a mechanism designed to ensure the success of the next generation. Yet when an Rh-negative mother carries an Rh-positive fetus, her body does something that defies every rule of nature. It doesn't recognize the child as its own.
Instead, her immune system identifies the fetus as a foreign invader, a virus or a parasite, and begins producing antibodies to attack and destroy it. This is known as hemolytic disease. Think about the weight of that for a moment. In the entire animal kingdom, across every species we have ever studied on this planet, this simply doesn't happen. No other mother naturally rejects her own offspring based on a blood type. I mean, it is a biological anomaly that makes no sense if we all supposedly evolved from the same source. If evolution is about the survival of the fittest, then why would nature create a bloodline that essentially tries to terminate itself? Then there's the rhesus factor itself. The name comes from the rhesus macaque, the monkey used to identify the protein found on the surface of most human red blood cells. If you are Rh positive, you share that protein with the primate world. You have a clear, traceable link to the terrestrial evolution of this planet. But the Rh negative minority, they have no such link. They are missing the very marker that connects us to our primate ancestors. It's not just that they are different, it's as if they are operating on an entirely different operating system. I have to ask, if 85% of the world is tied to the rhesus monkey, and the other 15% has no primate connection at all, then where did that 15% come from? Science calls it a mutation. But a mutation that causes a mother's body to attack her own child isn't an evolutionary step forward. It's a red flag. If we didn't get this trait from monkeys, we're left with a halting question about our true origins. And as it turns out, the official narrative isn't just missing a few details. It might be hiding a history that is much more ancient and much more intentional than we ever imagined. But you see, that's not even the most unsettling part. Because when you track where this bloodline actually comes from, you find that it doesn't just appear randomly. It clusters in specific, ancient locations that point to a very different kind of ancestor.
Think about what it really means to be human. Epic. Evolution tells us we share a common ancestor with primates, a slow, messy climb from the trees to the stars. And for 85% of the world's population, well, the proof is right there in their veins. Matter of fact, they carry the rhesus protein, a genetic marker we share directly with the rhesus monkey. But then, and I have to ask, what about the rest of you? Whispering, intense. What about the 15% who lack that protein entirely? Slightly skeptical. Science calls it a mutation. Knowing. I call it a missing link to a history we aren't supposed to remember. If you look at the ancient Sumerian tablets, or the Book of Enoch, you find stories that mainstream historians, well, they prefer to treat them as metaphors. Grand. They speak of the Anunnaki and the Nephilim, beings who descended from the heavens and looked upon the inhabitants of Earth not as equals, but as a canvas for something new. Thought-provoking. I mean, I believe we are looking at the evidence of a prehistoric intervention. Awestruck. A genetic upgrade, right? Where these celestial beings interbred with early humans, leaving behind a signature that cannot be explained by natural selection. See, this isn't just a theory written on dusty scrolls. It's written in your biology. Have you ever felt like you didn't quite fit the mold? It's a documented fact that Rh negative individuals often possess a specific cluster of traits that defy the norm. I'm talking about significantly higher than average IQs, lower resting body temperatures, and a heightened sensitivity to sunlight or heat. Wonder. Many are born with striking red or blonde hair and piercing blue or green eyes, even in lineages where those traits shouldn't exist. But there's one detail that's even more chilling. Clinical yet eerie.
Some Rh negatives have been found to possess an extra vertebra, or a tailbone that is shaped differently than the rest of the population. It's as if your skeleton itself is echoing a blueprint that isn't entirely terrestrial. Engaging, personal. I want you to look at your own hands, your own history. If your blood is a mistake according to evolution, then you aren't just an anomaly. You are living, breathing evidence of a lineage that traces its roots back to the stars. But as I looked closer at the data, I realized that these physical traits, well, they're just the beginning. Because when you look at how the world's elite have protected their own lineage for centuries, you start to see a pattern that is much more calculated than a simple genetic fluke. Ominous. There was one detail that everyone missed, and it's the most unsettling evidence of all. I found myself looking at the Pyrenees Mountains, a rugged border between France and Spain, where a group of people defies every known law of human migration. These are the Basque, and you know they speak a language called Euskera that shares no roots with any other tongue on the planet. But it's actually what's inside their veins that truly separates them from the rest of us. In most of the world, Rh negative blood is a rarity, showing up in about 15% of the population. But in the Basque region, that number skyrockets to 35%. I can't stop. I get this genetic anomaly close to here.
When I traced the timeline back, the trail led me to a sudden, unexplained explosion in human development 35,000 years ago. This was the era of the Cro-Magnon. Slightly cynical. You see, unlike the slow, agonizing crawl of evolution we're taught in school, Cro-Magnon appeared almost overnight with larger brains, advanced tools, and artistic skills that seemed to come from nowhere. Revealing. And interestingly enough, this is exactly where the Rh negative marker first enters the fossil record. It wasn't a slow mutation. It was a leap. It was as if a new blueprint had been dropped into the human gene pool. But the mystery doesn't stay buried in the ancient past. No. I started looking at the people who have ruled our world for centuries. Intrigued. We've all heard the term blue blood used to describe royalty, right? But I realized it might be more than just a metaphor for high birth. For generations, the elite families of Europe and beyond have been obsessively focused on their lineage, practicing strict endogamy, marrying only within their own circles. Publicly, they said it was about protecting wealth and titles. But as I dug deeper, I found evidence that they were tracking something far more specific, a genetic sequence. The divine right of kings wasn't just a political tool to keep the peasants in line. I mean, I believe it was a coded reference to a perceived genetic superiority, a god gene that they felt compelled to preserve at all costs. They weren't just protecting land, they were protecting the blood. They were keeping the Rh negative marker concentrated, treating it like a sacred inheritance from a non-human source. Why would these families be so terrified of diluting their blood, unless they knew exactly what that blood was capable of? This isn't just about ancient history or royal scandals. It's about a deliberate attempt to keep a specific type of biology active in the modern world. But while the elite were busy hiding their secrets in palace vaults, I found that the most shocking evidence wasn't in their family trees at all. It was hidden in the strange physical side effects that every Rh negative person carries with them today. However, there was one detail everyone missed, and it points to a physical capability that shouldn't exist in a human being. Think about it for a second. I mean, if I told you that a piece of hardwood from an advanced civilization was found buried deep in the sands of Egypt, call it an artifact, right? But what if that artifact isn't made of stone or gold? What if it's made of plasma and protein? I've spent this entire journey peeling back the layers of a conspiracy that spans, well, millennia. We've looked at the royal obsession with blue blood, the strange physical anomalies like lower body temperatures and extra vertebrae, and that eerie psychic sensitivity that seems to follow this bloodline like a shadow. When we look at the ancient Sumerian texts describing the Anunnaki or the legends of the Nephilim, I don't think we are just reading mythology anymore. I believe we are reading a fragmented user manual for a secondary human species. The evidence points to a single, chilling conclusion. Thousands of years ago, something or someone intervened in the human story. They left a fingerprint, not in the ruins of some dusty temple, but inside the double helix of our DNA. While the world looks to the stars for signs of alien life or digs through the dirt for lost cities, they are looking in the wrong direction. The truth isn't buried in a hidden vault or encrypted in a dusty scroll, you know? It's circulating through your heart right now. If you are Rh negative, you are the proof of a history that's been systematically erased from our textbooks. You are a bridge to a past that isn't entirely of this world. You don't need a permission slip from a mainstream scientist to know you're different. You felt it your entire life. That sense of not quite belonging here. That knowing that precedes the fact. That intuition that keeps you one step ahead of the crowd. This isn't just a biological fluke. It is a legacy. A silent, pulsing signal from a heritage that refuses to be forgotten. You aren't just part of the mystery. You are the answer. I want to hear from you. I mean, if you know your blood type, share it in the comments below. More importantly, I want to know about your intuitive experiences. Have you always felt like an outsider? Do you have those strange physical traits we discussed? Like the lower body temperature or the piercing gaze? Let's piece this puzzle together in the comments. If you felt a connection to what I've shared today, subscribe to Shadow Legends and join our circle of truth seekers. The truth is out there. But as we've seen today, sometimes it's also right inside you.